So I can go to a customer, I can look at the job, figure out, measure it real quick, figure out how much gravel they need, give them a cost on the gravel, give them a price, and walk away.
Imagine a path from managing thousands of acres of recreation land to running a solo excavation empire, all while juggling life as a stay-at-home dad and a goat rancher. That's exactly what Jason Pignanelli of Double J Excavation and Construction did. In 2021, Jason leaped into the unknown with just a Kubota skid steer, looking for more of a paying hobby than a profession. He unknowingly laid the foundation of his future, all while facing the tightrope of single-parent fatherhood and business. He's turned challenges into successes, mastered customer service, and precisions and estimates. His journey is marked by an unforgettable lesson from a scratch fence in an alley, embodying resilience and the importance of learning from every misstep. Today, we're going to dive into a story of his transformation, his determination, and the deep-rooted belief in making every day a groundbreaking success. Gear up for a tale of grit and growth, where digging deep always leads to new heights. And speaking of digging deeper, let's pivot and talk to you for a moment about Skid Steer Nation. Whether you're a seasoned contractor like Jason or just starting out, Skid Steer Nation is your go-to source for American-made skid steer attachments and expertise. With unbeatable quality and a knowledgeable team ready to guide you, Skid Steer Nation ensures you have the right attachment to tackle any job, big or small. Visit skidsteernation.com today and elevate your equipment game. Jason, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Small world is that we had reached out to you a while ago to be a guest on the show. And I don't know if things just didn't work out on our end or your end, but anyway, it kind of just got pushed off and kind of forgotten on both parties. You called Do More Equipment because you have one of their SSHA or MA graders,
Okay.
The MA grader, the manual adjustable, and you start talking to the sales manager over there who just happens to be my brother. And he mentioned something about me having Skid Steer Nation. You're like, no way, that's your brother? We're supposed to do a podcast. And it was just the spark we needed to reconnect and say, hey, let's make this interview happen, man.
It was, I apologize. I got a little bit busy in November before the end of the season and wanted to do it. So thanks for having me.
No, but yeah, I think it's just a twist of fate how you ended up having a Do More grader talking to my brother, and it got us back on track to make this interview happen. So pretty cool.
To throw it out to Do More, that grader is the best investment I ever made to expand my business.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but we hear from people all the time, primarily keyboard warriors on social media, but they're always saying, oh, you can do the same thing with a bucket. And I'm like, yeah, and you can dig a hole with a spoon, but why would you?
I completely agree. So I went to go do a job one morning and the contractors got mixed up and the guy showed up with the skid steer and a bucket and I showed up with my grader. Ended up, I got the job. And I know people will say you can do it with a bucket. You dig out the pothole, you back drag it, but a grader cuts the hole down, fills it in, rejuvenates the gravel. I've saved people thousands of dollars instead of putting more gravel down. What I've learned is people just take gravel and put more gravel on top of gravel. And if you take a grader, you can dig up that gravel, rejuvenate the driveway, and maybe have to put a little bit of gravel down.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but before our Skid Steer Nation, I was actually the president or general manager of Do More Equipment for almost 10 years. I actually hired my brother to work for me there. We actually did some studies with some road commissioners in North Carolina and in Illinois. And based on their estimates and the time that they've been using a grader to maintain their rural roads, they found on average that they can extend the life of a road without adding new gravel to it by 2 years. So they typically went 4 or 5 years and they'd have to respread some gravel on top of the rural roads. And with this, they were going more like 6 and 7 years.
Oh. Yeah, I believe it. It's a simple piece of machinery to some degree, but it just brings the gravel back. I found a compactor the other day, a couple years ago. I grade it, compact it, and it lasts. I mean, it really digs it up. and really does a good job.
So one of the things I always noticed about the grader, I'd like to get your input on this too, is do you notice that when you start grading that you actually kind of feel the grader suck down, like as those blades cut in, it almost kind of pulls it down and you're not fighting it on top?
I have a 65 horsepower Kubota skid steer and a 72-inch grader, and it does great. If I had a bigger grader, you'd probably have to go a bigger skid steer, but it brings up so much material. And my theory is it cuts down, an inch and a half. You go back over, it keeps cutting, and it just keeps pulling that gravel back up.
Yeah. But when we were designing that grader, because it started out as a tractor grader, 2-blade pull tractor grader, we were having trouble getting the blade to like want to engage and stay engaged. It kept wanting to come to the surface and kind of bounce on top like a lot of grader attachments do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not kidding you. We got down to like a 1/2 degree. So like there's a specific degree that those blade holders are bent because of the research and trial and error to get that. And we find it's probably a trade secret, so I don't want to say it, but screw it. 27.5 degrees, I believe, is what we came up with that actually pulled that blade into the ground. And it just helps keep it engaged. Like you're not fighting it to push it back in the ground. It doesn't want to come back to the surface. Once it breaks that top crust, it just stays.
I have friends that have competitor graders, and I won't say what they are, but they've mentioned that they skip, and mine doesn't skip. And I tell them that. I said, mine does not skip off the ground. Like once it's down, it's down.
That's because of that specific angle that those blade holders are bent to.
So, and I will say, after 2 years of heavy use, I just replaced the blades about a week ago.
That's awesome, man. That's a long life on those.
It lasted. The feet are lasting, they're holding up. And I've done some really hard stuff. I've even started stuff with it thinking, oh gosh, I can't do this. It's not going to break through it. Just keep going on it, and it'll break it through. So.
Yeah, it sure will. All right. So I feel like we've been doing one hell of a plug on the attachments. And if you're curious, you can find that exact grader over at skidsteernation.com.
Whenever somebody posts something about a grader, I push your guy's grader, or your brother's grader.
Well, I went from being his boss to being his customer. So we're still all in the family, man.
Nice.
So cool. You've got one heck of an interesting story, man, from land management and recreational management degree from West Virginia to ending up in Montana as a park ranger to managing massive tracts of land, 5,000-6,000 acre tracts of land, and doing project management for rec centers. It includes over 100 projects at a time. I mean, what a journey you've been on to get to where you are today.
I got to say, when I probably started out as a 18-year-old going to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started off in wildlife management. I remember one of the first internships under that was counting geese at the end of the runway. And I was like, I'm too much of a people person. So I switched to recreation and parks management, land management, graduated in 98 with a degree from West Virginia University. Did an internship with the Navy in college. Wanted to go, I guess, back and work for the Navy. So I got to start the second ever outdoor rec program in the world for the Navy that was an established outdoor rec program at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center. I was a DOD. I wasn't in the Navy. From there, moved on to working for the state of Montana, working for a private lodge outside of California, outside of Yosemite. I worked for the city of Missoula Parks and Rec Department. Worked for a power company, all doing recreation, land management, project management.
I'll tell you what, I was a little envious of that. I love being out west near the mountains. The sky's just a whole different blue. The greens are just more vibrant. The air smells better. And just to hear like, oh yeah, I got to live in Montana and Northern California. I'm like, God, I'm jealous.
I've moved all around. My dad worked for Corning Glass and Wheaton's Glass growing up in West Virginia. I was born to Ohio, to New York, to Southern New Jersey, to West Virginia, Virgin Islands. Illinois, California, but been in Montana about 20 years now. And
Okay.
really like it. And don't think I'd live anywhere else at this point.
No, I've been to Montana once. I have a friend of mine that lives down in, I think it's called the Ruby River Valley, over by Ted Turner's ranch. He's not too far from that. We actually went gopher hunting, or what do you call those little guys out there?
Yeah.
Using the old HMR 17s. It was a lot of fun. But I just remember driving down from Canada into Montana, and I literally had to pull the car over twice because I was paying so little attention to the road and they were so curvy, because I just couldn't stop staring at the landscape and the blue sky and the streams and rivers down below as you're coming down. And if God didn't just take his finger and go, here you go, I don't know what else you could call it.
It's beautiful. Montana has, just a diverse landscape. The west side of Montana, a little more trees, a little more wetter, I guess you'd call it. East side of Montana, where I live now. And I've lived in Missoula, northwestern Montana, Great Falls. It's just a beautiful place. So good people.
What's that brewing company? Is it Missoula Brewing Company that's over there in Missoula? Don't they make a beer called Moose Drool?
I'm gonna blank on it. So
all their beers are animal themed. I remember those came out in they hit Illinois in like the early 2000s, and I thought they were awesome cans and bottles. So we started buying it because when I owned bars and restaurants, we started carrying that stuff. So
Missoula was where I started my journey, I guess, in Montana, working for the Parks Department, and then moved to Great Falls, and then moved to northwestern Montana. That's a whole different animal up there. Beautiful, huge mountains, streams, hunting's amazing. But you're out in the middle of nowhere, and then moved back to Great Falls.
Got it. Yeah. So 2021, you just bought the skid steer, if I'm correct, hoping to just do a little bit of work, make sure it pays for itself, and have something to do more like a hobby that paid you a little money.
I had a little bit of acreage, raised goats. It was cheaper to buy round bales than square bales. It was easier to feed the goats. I was doing lots of projects around the house. I had a little Kubota tractor, and I wore that thing to death. It was an awesome little tractor. I hauled logs with that thing. But always wanted a skid steer. Thought it'd be easier to do work around the place. Got the skid steer. Figured, well, I owe $750 a month. Maybe I can start a business. Maybe I can make my payments. Maybe I can pay for my general liability insurance. And that kind of grew the first year. I was also doing some real estate at that time, which I'm still actually real estate licensed in Montana. And it kind of grew from there.
That's fantastic. And you've really you've stayed in your lane. Have I noticed that you really stay focused on roadways, site pads, like gravel finish type prep work? You don't really get outside of that with drainage solutions and other things else. Have you noticed that helps you grow your business, being more specific in what you offer?
I think you get better as you go. I guess my theory is if you're not learning something every day from every project, how to get better, you're not growing. So I've gotten pretty good at it. There's still lots I need to learn and lots of things to do. I do, land leveling with the grader. I bought a landscape rake. I rake that over. I'm looking at possibly getting a seeder. So I try to move in smart ways that I know my business can grow. I have done drains. I've done water lines. I'm should be working on some of these irrigation systems soon for a greenhouse. So I don't mind venturing out a little bit, but I think as a business owner too, you need to know your limitations. You don't want to fail too bad. So you try not to take on, I can walk away from a project, not because I don't want to do it, but because I know it's not in my wheelhouse to do it.
Yeah. That's smart. I think that comes with age, because when I was in my 20s, I would have taken on any project. Now that I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, I'm just going to stick with what I'm good at and what I have an interest and passion in learning.
Yep. No, I agree. It's trying to, I think, keep growing and expand to where you are comfortable expanding. I don't want to hire 20 employees because then you have to watch those employees and you don't want to grow too fast, but you want to grow. But it depends on where you want to grow and how you want to grow.
Absolutely. And I don't know. The older I get too, the more when I need work done for myself, like I want to find the guy that's known in the area as the guy for doing that type of work. You know, like when I see those like the home renovation companies that say, oh, we can do siding and we can do roofing and we can do gutters and we do foundation repair and we can do bathroom remodels. I'm like, but are you good at any of them? Like you almost offer too many services. And I feel excavation's kind of the same way.
I've seen people around here do that. You know, they specialize in something, but they'll build you a pole barn.
Yeah.
How do you go from changing a kitchen sink to building a pole barn? I just don't know how that works. So I think staying and becoming good and becoming reputable, and be hopefully getting well known in the neighborhood that you do good, fair, honest business. Yeah. And you call people back. A lot of people have problems with contractors, and they shouldn't. But
Jason, I think it's dumb how financially free you could be as a business owner in the excavation industry just by answering the phone and communicating with potential and existing clients.
I have to admit, I probably over communicate.
I think you're better off to do that than under communicate.
Yeah.
How many customers refer you or call you for second or third projects because they know you're going to do what you say you're going to do and you answer the phone and they don't have to wonder and be curious what you're doing?
And I don't think it has to be overwhelming for somebody. You know, if I get a text on a Sunday night, it's fine. It takes 2 seconds to answer it back. And I think that's just being receptive. I don't think it will ever become overwhelming. So I think that being in recreation, land management, public service for 25 years, I guess I feel that I'm more of a public servant. So you're there for the people and you're there for your clients. And if you show up when you say you're going to show up and do what you say you're going to do, you will achieve 100 times over. Yeah. Answer the phone, talk to them.
Yeah. If you're a single owner operator or you've got 2 or 3 employees that are working for you, like a single crew, I think the fastest way to increase your revenue, minimum 20%, is to get really good at communication and make sure you have a good first impression with your appearance. Those 2 simple things. And I think you could take whatever number you're at and add 20% plus to it.
I think go in there and working hard and just showing up. I mean, and you know, on that same note, when I hire somebody, I know, you know, I'm fine. I can do all my electric work, but I'd rather hire a local company that can come in and knock it out in an hour when it's going to take me 5 hours. And they show up, they do what they say they're going to do, and then you call them back. So it's a whole referral I think after I'm going in my 4th year now, and I have lots of customers that are coming back. So that makes me feel good. I'm probably way too hard on myself, that I'm doing the best I can at every job. You know, I think one thing that I always look at and I treat every project like it's my own house, and I will do the best I can at my house that I'll do at somebody else's house.
That's a great way to look at it.
So,
I mean, they're trusting you with their property and their vision. And I think you have an obligation, if you're going to get into this business, to fulfill it.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So yeah, you kind of mentioned when we were talking earlier that your time in rec management, being that people person, was really key for you with your growth strategy because of your ability to easily communicate, walk through estimates, return phone calls. Would you say that would be like the secret to your launchpad success is just communication? And
I think communication and answering the phone and being receptive and, just being there for people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people need their hands held. I'm not saying that, but I just think that customer service is number one. Doing the job great is close to number one, but you just need to be, and I think that's, being answering to the public for 25 years kind of molds you who you are, and you're always trying for 100% customer satisfaction. When I worked for the Navy, it was making the sailors happy. When I worked for the power company, it was making everybody in town, want to go to the recreation sites. And, I managed 56 recreation sites, just over 5,000 acres. When I was a state park manager at Giant Springs State Park here in Montana, it's the most visited state park in the state.
Wow.
So, you have hundreds of thousands of people coming to your park. They want it clean. They want it nice. They want good customer service. They, expect the bathrooms to be clean. So it's customer service is definitely number one.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. So as a business owner and having a young child, one of the things you talk about is between picking up and dropping off for school and managing your fatherly duties in the morning and the afternoons and evenings, that a lot of times a single day job has to turn into a 2-day project for you.
It can be hard. I'm on a week rotation now with my son. He's 6. So he can go to an after school program, which is fine. But I don't like to leave him there if I don't have to. And especially in Montana, fortunately, we don't get to work year round. So wintertime's a little slow. So I can take advantage of it. But come spring, summer, fall, you're kind of working around that. You're trying to, and anybody that does dirt work, excavation, gravel work, you don't just clock out and walk out. Like, you got to put away your equipment. You got to clean up. That's the worst part about even a homeowner's project. You got a half hour to clean up to put your tools away. So you end up stopping a little early. And what that can happen is a 1-day project turns into a 2-day project, or a 2-day project turns into a 4-day project. So that's one thing I need to keep in mind in scheduling. I try to work my butt off when I don't have them. And when I do have them, try to work around that. And if I make less money for the year, it just happens.
Yeah. Define success, right? Playing with a 6-year-old and watching him interpret the world sounds much more successful than a little extra money to me.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Money's, I know probably a lot of younger people get into this. I'm 48 years old. I've been around the block, and it's happiness. It's having time off. It's, spending time with my son, enjoying life. But I have to make a livable wage.
You got to make a livable wage too. So I'm going to pivot here real quick. I'm usually pretty good at that during episodes, but you talked about, success is happiness. And I'm just curious, because of all of your time in Parks and Rec and all of that, like, how do you define happiness?
I think being able to do what you want when you want to do it. Making enough money that you're not worried. You're not, being able to take a Friday off and go camping for 3 days. Being able to go somewhere for a week during the winter. I don't live extravagantly. I, have a little house now, and but it gives you plenty of money to go do things that you want to do. And it's not always about the money. It's about being able to go enjoy life. I don't go stay in Airbnbs. I don't go stay in hotels. I take my stock trailer that I turned into a camper and take it to the reservoir, to go camping. So I think it's little things like that that really make you happy. And everybody's happiness degrees to a different degree, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. For me personally, I found that, do you remember the movie when it came out, The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith in it?
Yes, but I can't remember exactly about it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's more about the title of the movie. And I'm like, what a misleading title, because I don't think the end goal is happiness. I'm always happiest when I'm in pursuit of new knowledge and new challenge and a new adventure. And it's just like that little twist, like, oh, happiness is actually in the doing, not the getting to the end result.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah, and the journey is the destination, right? It should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tracy gets mad at me. We'll go on vacations, and she's like, "What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I got a plane ticket there and a plane ticket home, and we went to Spain. I'm like, I got a train ticket that goes to these 3 towns, and these are the days we're in those towns." And she's like, "What are we gonna do there?" And I'm like, "We're gonna explore and let it come to us."
Yep.
You know, especially when you travel internationally. She's like, I kind of like to know what we're doing, and I'm like, yeah.
I think that's the I don't know. So I'll meet younger people that are driving gravel trucks or running machines, and it's taking that leap to start your own business, which it does take time to develop your customers, develop your business, develop your somewhat of a business plan. But I think a lot of people like that weekly paycheck because it's security. But I don't think that security necessarily brings you happiness to where running your own business gives you time to go do what you want when you want to do it.
Yeah, I think that security can become your own prison.
Yeah. It's never forget when I worked for the Navy, the recreation manager, he had a little side business where he rented out blow up things for kids' birthday parties. And he made good money back then. I think this was probably 2002 or something. I think my income with the Navy was like $25,000 a year. That was pretty good money back then, I thought. But so he probably made pretty good money as the manager of all of us. And he was doing well with his side business, but he didn't want to give up that steady income to go try his side business. And the scary part is a lot of people fail. And I think I'm at a pretty good point where I'm going to continue on. I will continue on as far as I can continue on, I guess. But
you got one more year to go, Jason. Statistics show that 80% of small businesses fail within the first 2 years. And then 80% of that existing 20% fails within 5 years. So if you get to the 5-year mark, like, you're in rare air.
I think it can keep going. I have no worries.
I mean, if you provide a high quality finished product and you treat the property as if it was your own home, and you communicate with the customer, and you obviously have great personality and good people skills, you're fine.
I think it's finding that. So anybody that is looking to do this, I'd say find that niche where you live. Great Falls has lots of gravel, lots of driveways. I mean, if I lived in suburban Miami, I'd probably be doing something completely different. So it's just trying to find that niche and make connections. I kind of really want to say this is find a mentor, find somebody that you can. I have a good friend, Jason Pignanelli. He owns a gravel pit and does the same work I do. He knows what I make on a project. I know what he does, and he helps me out when I need help. So it's making the connections. I know a lot of contractors are a little secretive because they could possibly backstab you. So it's just find somebody that you can trust, grow your business, and be happy with it.
Yeah. I have found with our groundbreaking growth consulting and coaching side of the business, we do a lot of work, whether it be in group settings or one-on-one settings with contractors and business owners. But I also have such a wide network of customers and past clients that let's say, for instance, you had some questions specifically for grading. Like I know a guy in North Carolina, that's all he does. He's a single operator also. And I can connect the two of you, and like he can be your other counterpart to learn from with zero risk of competition because you're thousands of miles away. So I get as much compliments from the people we coach and work, they're like, hey man, what you did for us was amazing. And we've changed our direction. We've grown in revenue, but the connections you've made for me in other areas of the United States to be able to bounce ideas off was as valuable as the coaching.
I'd say it's working with other people, and just know that, everybody's out there trying to do the same thing. They're trying to grow their business and to make money and live a happy life. So, there's no reason to backstab people.
No, not at all. Not at all. You take down a tree, you decide not to drag it, and you tear up an entire, was it a vinyl fence, or what type of fence did you tear up?
It was a vinyl.
And how many feet did you tear up of this fence with that tree?
I won't say it wasn't torn up. It was scratched.
Okay.
80, 100 feet.
Were you out there with like a heat gun trying to heat it up and smooth it around, or?
So you clean it, and then you take acetone.
Okay.
And you lightly rub it, and it hopefully takes the vinyl back, or it gets rid of the scratches out of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, the owner of the fence was happy with my cleaning, because it would have been it would have went to my liability insurance. I mean, it would have been 40,
100 feet of vinyl fence isn't cheap. No.
So I think that's where you make mistakes. Hopefully the mistakes you can fix. I hate to say that poop happens, but when you're running a 8, 9, 10,000 pound piece of equipment, and maybe you're tired, maybe you're exhausted, maybe you've been in the machine for 8 hours and you're just worn out and you're not thinking right. Mistakes can happen. Mistakes can happen in the beginning. I mean,
there's a specific reason they teach the special forces operators slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yeah. Because it's that little corner that you cut like that. Like you had the tree vertical and you're like, you know what? I don't want to lay it down and drag it. I've already got it. I'm just going to go this way. And now that 30 seconds of time savings that you were trying to achieve cost you hours of cleaning and maintenance. And like it, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I was driving, I don't remember where I was going, but I was doing like 65 and a 45. And I was like, because I was running a little bit behind. I was going to be like 3 or 4 minutes late. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to slow down to 52. I'm going to be 1 extra minute late instead of being 30 minutes late because I'm getting pulled over for a speeding ticket.
No, I think that's where you have to be happy. Like I see people asking about pricing all the time. My biggest thing I say to anybody that is listening, don't charge hourly, charge per job. And if you're happy with that cost,
preach.
It makes you happier to be out there working on that job.
Yeah.
If you undercut it, thinking, well, I just need this, you're not going to be happy out there. You might not.
If you're not happy, your work suffers, and the customer's not happy. It just becomes a domino effect.
Yep. And you're not going to get every bid.
Right. And my favorite thing to tell people is not every customer is right for you. Not that you're not right for them, but sometimes you have to interview your customers.
If you don't feel good, walk away.
Yeah. You hear those horror stories about getting that $30,000 job and guys are all excited to do all the dirt work. And then the guy's like, yeah, I'm not paying that. Like, I kind of knew in the beginning he seemed a little shady. And I'm like, you're just so excited to get to work.
Yep. So lesson learned on the tree. Slow down.
So you're talking about estimating and pricing there. And you feel like that's one area of your business that you've really got dialed in. Can we dig into that a little bit and talk about?
I think it's probably, I, I, I love my customers and I want to do the best I can for them and I want to give them the best price I can. But in the end, between taxes and fuel, insurance on the truck, the trailer, the skid steer, the equipment, I mean, you have to charge what you have to charge. So I pretty much have my daily rate now. And I know if I leave the house for way less than that, it's usually not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's one thing I guess you get better with over time.
So walk me through that a little bit. Like, how did you get better knowing your numbers and like being dialed in on what a daily cost for you is on the backside?
I think I just started off at a cost and then started to say, okay, well, I can get this, I can get this. This is what it's costing me. This is how much it is. I've had customers say to me, well, I'll just go rent a skid steer. I said, go ahead. You got $400 in renting the skid steer. You got $50 in the trailer. You got to go pick it up. You got to go bring it back. You got to fuel it up. If it comes back dirty, they're going to charge you to clean it. And you got to know how to run it. And if you just take those costs, I mean, you pretty much got your costs of what you need to charge. And then you add on what you need to make for the day. Because you have your fixed costs. So it's one of the harder things. I guess I'd say it's one of the harder things, but it's one of the easier things for me now.
Yeah, and I think that's how it typically goes. The hard things become easy with intention and daily disciplines to stay on top of that. And when you start tracking your numbers, you can make improvements. Mm-hmm. What do they say? If you're not tracking it, you can't grow it.
Yeah. So you need to know how much your costs are per year, or per, it's hard, to figure out cost per month. That's always been a little hard because if you're not working, you're not working. I mean, you have costs. The costs don't go away. The loans don't go away. One thing is somebody was talking about one day about buying equipment and taking loans out to buy equipment. And I would highly say that's not advisable in my terms. If you can't afford the equipment, just go rent the equipment. Because when you rent the equipment, you can put it back on your customer. If you go out and buy the equipment and you don't find jobs for it and you're making payments on it, that's going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on that. Like, I love the idea of renting until you're ready to buy. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that if you can go out there and pre-sell 5, 6, 7 services and have proof of concept that the market in your area needs the services that you want to provide, mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes buying that skid steer is a little nudge in the butt you need to keep you aggressive with going out and attracting and finding new customers, because you already proved the service is good. Now it's just a matter of not getting lazy, finding new leads, new clients, networking, and all of that.
So yeah, I'd always say buy the skid steer. Buy the skid steer. That'll keep you in business. Dump trailer. I rented a dump trailer for a few years. I was like, this is such a pain in the butt. Let's go buy a dump trailer. And that dump trailer's made me money. It's, I use it all the time. I don't know. I wouldn't go buy a concrete breaker because I only use it 2-3 times a year.
Right.
It's just not specialty. So I'd go rent that. A post pounder. Post pounders are ridiculously expensive. I probably wouldn't go buy one. I can go rent one for $200. So you take that $200 and you more $250. But you take that $250 divided into the 10,000. You better use that thing over the next 4 years to make it worthwhile. So.
No, absolutely. Unless you're at a point in business where you need tax write-offs and that's the purpose of buying the equipment, I 1000% agree. Just rent. Buy the staple attachments that you're going to do, like the services that you're going to be known for in your area, like you did with the Do More Greater.
the grader, the landscape rake, and my compactor.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are my 3 go-tos.
I remember I had a guy, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before too, but we had a kid call in a couple of years ago, and he was getting ready to buy a skid steer, and he wanted to get a few attachments so he could start making some money with it. And I was like, this is going to sound counterintuitive. I go, but if you're going to do gravel driveways and you live in the state of Washington, I know where you're at, there's a need for it. I'm like, buy this grader, rent the skid steer, go do 10 jobs, then buy the skid steer. And he just couldn't comprehend that he would buy an attachment for a machine he didn't own.
He didn't have. And equipment is always good. I mean, you can probably turn around and sell most used equipment for close or, lower than what you actually paid for it.
Yeah. Just last night on our coaching call with one of the guys, he was asking about trailers. And it's funny you said that about dump trailers, because he's got a small Mini X. I don't remember what model it is, but it's small enough that it could fit in a dump trailer. It's not a very large one. So he was debating on like a flatbed trailer, a 20-foot dovetail, or a dump trailer. And we just kind of walked through it. And I always say, look at it from 3 points of view, right? Like, what's the pros of owning either trailer versus the cons? So to him, he had more pros to owning a dump trailer for where he lived and the services he did and some things he did in his personal life than the other trailer. What's the cash flow differential? I'm like, well, there's only a couple $1,000 difference between a new, if you go factory direct and all that. So it wasn't going to be a huge financial gain that way. And then the third thing is, like, he didn't have a CDL yet. So I was like, you get a dump trailer, nobody's even looking at you.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work out where you actually need to get a bigger trailer or a flat trailer later, you can still sell. It's still an asset that you own, and you can still sell that for a large chunk of money if it's in good shape, and recoup that and then reinvest it into the other trailer. So it's not like you're out 13 grand. You might be out 2,000. But if you used it, you should have generated that money back in services.
I think thinking outside the box. Take that dump trailer and go haul garbage. You're not going to make as much in a day as you would doing excavation, but it still helps pay the bills.
Yeah.
Where a flatbed trailer, you'd have a hard time doing that.
Right. I think for him, he's going to be focused on, actually right up your alley, but he's going to be focused on developing and managing like recreational hunting properties for people. Like, he works, like, he's got a lot of contacts at industry. He's got a lot of knowledge in hunting. And I'm like, man, where you're at, that's what I would make your primary focus and become known as the guy that can perfectly set up, say, hey, your food plot needs to be here. We'll disc this. We'll power rake that. We'll build some rows here. These 6 areas, we'll put shooting lanes in. The sun rises on this side. The deer are going to be sitting on this side of the hill. You're going to want to enter from this side. So we'll build you your trail. And I'm like, that knowledge there will sell you so many jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can be known as the guy that helps them bag the trophies.
Food plot guy.
Yeah.
I think it's that finding that niche. I mean, I don't know how it is in other places, but we have lots of large companies that do gravel dirt work, and they're all great. I've worked with them all to get gravel delivery or things like that. But just sometimes being that smaller person and staying in your lane, knowing what you can do, knowing what you can't do, really helps out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just not a lot of little guys left, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah. And speaking of, thinking outside the box and staying in the correlation with the dump trailer, like, I know a fireman in Kentucky that he's trying to grow an excavation business off the ground on his days off and the weekends. Well, he does have a dump trailer too. And he noticed that it was sitting around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So he went out and personally visited and took donuts to all the office managers at all the gravel quarries in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And now he gets referrals from them all the time for customers that need 5 ton of rock.
Yeah, say 2 yards, 3 yards.
Right. Like the small stuff that a large truck, it just makes zero sense to have it delivered that way. So he started getting hired on that. And he's like, man, most of the people don't need it today because it's for a project they're doing themselves. So then he learned to schedule them. So he's doing 2, 3, 4 runs on the same day, maximizing his time with the trailer versus 1 run here and an hour this way. And
hour back.
But again, just, hey, I got equipment. It's sitting. People need small loads. I'll go become that guy. And
Yeah,
as the excavation company grows, I'll just wean it out. And when it's no longer the right move for me to continue to do.
it's I think it's intimidating for some people too. To call a large company in town, you talk to somebody, then you get referred to somebody, and you're not texting them at Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So I think that's where littler companies, littler people, where we can make a difference and get business and stay busy.
Yeah. When I call other companies, I always want to find out what problems either they have or their customers have, so I can provide a tailored solution that makes their life easier or helps them generate more money by making their customers' lives easier. Like, there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than calling a company saying, "Hey, I've got a dump trailer if you ever need me to do any services." Like, you're just another phone call that came in, where if you call up and you interview a little bit and get to know that person or somebody, the front office manager, and then when you can actually offer that dump trailer for 5-yard loads because it's not profitable to send a large truck and the customers don't need to spend 600 in shipping for, in trucking. Now they can visualize the solution and the problem solving that you're providing as a company, where just asking a few questions so you can tailor your offer to their specific needs and desires makes a huge difference.
That's what I was just talking to a friend this morning about. Some larger companies are charging $180 an hour on top of the gravel costs. It makes me wonder if gravel companies raising their prices are going to put other people down the line out of business. So if you can do that service at a lower price, maybe you get the back end of the business too, where, okay, I'll bring your gravel and I can charge you this much, but I can also spread your gravel for you and I can compact your gravel for you. So then you're growing your business by picking one side of it and then going down from that.
And I tell this, in fact, that guy in Kentucky, we went through that too. I'm like, since you have a dump trailer, a little workaround on Facebook Marketplace, you cannot sell the service. It has to be a product. So I'm like, since you have a dump trailer, you can literally sell gravel. And then in the description of the gravel, offer the spreading and grading for the driveway or the site pad or the garage pad, whatever. And that is kind of the workaround to not getting your posts on Marketplace flagged and removed from Marketplace, is to sell the material that you're going to use on the project that you want to do the excavation work for.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Pro tip right there for all you listeners.
I was going to say, I'll take that one.
I mean, you got the dump trailer, so even if they don't want you to spread it, you can still make money hauling the gravel for them.
Still make money selling it.
But now you're on I think the hardest part in business is getting to step foot on somebody's property. That's the hardest part in business. And once you're on that property, it's up to you to look around and to sell your vision, your business, your services anywhere you can. So if you can get on their property by delivering gravel, you got a much higher chance of selling them on the spreading and grading services than you do not being there and face to face.
I kind of just did that the other day. I had to do a little gravel work, and that hopefully will turn into another project, which I know turn into another project. So once you get talking to people and, saying, hey, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. I know I can't do that for you. But
I know a guy that can do that for you.
Yep.
I think that's the most important thing too, is that you need to be their resource for either doing the work or providing the high quality referral that can do that work. And then they're going to call you for every excavation job, and you get to pick and choose which ones are in your wheelhouse and which ones you want to refer out.
About a year ago, I got a message from a friend that I did lots of work for, and they said this probably you don't know or can't, or this isn't in your wheelhouse. And I was like, no. I said I could do it, but I know somebody that could do it better and do it faster. And then you refer them to that. So then, like you said, they're always coming back to you, and you're always in that connection with them. And
yeah, it's like you develop the trust with the customer, because if you're trustworthy enough to say, hey, I can do that, but I know a guy can do it better, they're going to call you from anything moving forward. And two, you potentially can gain reciprocity with the other company that you're referring work to, because they're going to be doing tasks that's not in their wheelhouse that could be in yours. And now you're going to get full circle.
I don't do a lot of subcontracting, but I do. And it's really nice to work with general contractors in town that do, building garages or kitchen remodels. And then they say, well, I need some of this. Then they refer me, and then you build those relationships with the contractors. So I'm sure I probably give away more pricing and information that go nowhere, to help them out. But at least I'm on their radar. And if it does come down to it, they call me to do it. So it's building those relationships with the customers and other people.
I think the relationships are so key. You're literally leveraging other people to promote and sell your business and your trust. And while you're out in the machine actually working, generating a dollar, you could have 3 people in town talking about you that you don't even know about, all because you maintain high quality relationships and networking.
And I talked about that. I don't know. Marketing, advertising.
Yep.
I've always just used Facebook. And I guess I'd recommend that to anybody. My biggest thing that I'd say is start your business page and keep your business page on your personal page, and don't post personal stuff. Because people are looking at your business page and they're looking at your personal page.
So the pro tip for that is either A, go clean up your personal page and make it look respectable for everybody, or yes, B, make it non-visible for non-friends. Don't let them find your personal page. If you can't stop posting political stuff or ridiculous memes, just make it private so that if you're not friends, they can't find it. They have to just look at your business page.
But I'll tell you the secret I found to that one is I friend everybody I can in the area. So you build up that friend and then you share your business page to that friend. So that's why I always keep them.
I'm a huge proponent of cleaning up your personal page and doing it the right way. But there's just some guys out there that just aren't going to do it. And I'm like, if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to look at Facebook as a business tool and you still want to look at it as a personal social media entertainment tool, then you need to make yourself private. Because a lot of the stuff you're putting on there, if it offends 20% of your potential client base, that's ridiculous to lose them. If you go to my personal Facebook page, like my cover photo is about groundbreaking growth and it's promoting our businesses and services. Like I don't use Facebook for personal reasons. I might scroll a little bit when I'm on there, but I don't get on there to scroll. I get on there to do work.
I do post a picture of my kid once in a while.
I'm telling you, that's the stuff that actually makes you relatable and sells your business, though, is the personal stuff.
Yeah.
Because they see you're not just sunshine daisies, we do great work. You're like, hey, we also have kids and we also take a vacation and we also have a flooded basement.
Yeah. I think marketing is, it's one of those harder things. I'm actually meeting with somebody today from a local TV station. And I haven't decided if it's a route I want to go. But getting your name out there, and when you're a small guy fighting the trenches, you just just building your business. If I was in it for 20 years, I'd probably be. I have a friend that did this way before me, and he was always my go-to, for dirt work, concrete work, things like that. So it's just building your clientele, I guess.
Yeah. Would you like my input on TV commercials?
Sure. Love it.
So I'm a big proponent of separating marketing from branding, right? So marketing is what you do to get new leads. It's what you do to increase your revenue. Branding is what you do to make sure you stay where you're at or continue to grow. Right? Nike doesn't track shoe sales from a Just Do It commercial. They track it from the specific shoe commercials. So to me, TV commercials are amazing for branding. But if you have an advertising budget that you need to invest every month and then see an ROI on that you can track and notice like, hey, we had 37 leads from this particular lead source, TV's not right for you. If this is like, hey, we're doing well, the phone's ringing, we don't need to get 37 more phone calls, but I want to make sure everybody in town remembers me when their gravel needs worked, then TV's perfect for you.
What do you think about internet, app, web commercials? So it's not a full out commercial, but a link, I guess, that would show up on something. And they'd click the link, go to your.
So with today's abilities, I know iPhone's made it a little difficult with their privacy rules and everything else, but I find the best thing a small contractor can do is have a really, really good Google business profile and do your damnedest to get in the top 3. They call it the map pack, the top 3 listings in your map and your local SEO search ranking. Make sure you have citations to all the data aggregators, and a data aggregator is like the Yellow Pages, Dex. Facebook's considered a data aggregator. Foursquare, Yelp, all those places. And there's 1,000 of those listings, because the more you have of those, the more Google recognizes you as a trustworthy, authentic business. And then go through that profile and get a beer, a glass of wine, or a water, and just give yourself 2 hours uninterrupted, because it's the best time you can spend on it, because it's going to work for you for a long time with no more input from you. Be specific in your services. Give descriptions to each service. There's a Q&A section in your Google business profile. Use it as an FAQ, a frequently asked questions sections. Write out your own questions and then write out your own answers. So that way you've got all these questions. There's 2 sides to that. One, customers can see that data, read those, and not bug you with basic questions, hopefully. And then 2, all of those answers and questions help Google realize what relevancy you have to specific keywords. So you're doing more search engine optimization for yourself using that Q&A section. Get some photos on there. Hide your business location if you don't have a brick and mortar location. And then they give you 20 towns to choose for your service area. Put 20 towns in there. I can't tell you how many people put 5 towns in there. I'm like, what are you doing? Pick the small ones around it. Let Google know exactly how big your circle is.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
That's my 2 cents on Google business profile. In fact, just yesterday, I just recorded the session of our video library for coaching students on Google business profile. So I'll find a way to get you those videos so you can watch them and help you out with your Google business profile.
I do have one. I actually just updated it the other day with some more pictures. And it's amazing how many people click it. I mean, it's amazing too. Like even your Facebook, your Facebook business. I don't know if it was you or the person I'm meeting this afternoon, but I had like 25 views yesterday. I mean, so people are looking. And I think it's just staying up on marketing. That's, I think, one of the hardest things running your own business by yourself is you are in charge of marketing, estimates, invoicing, insurance, equipment repair, actually doing the work.
Yeah. And I've learned this my personal way, from the hard way, struggling, getting burned out, and then doing research to learn there's got to be a better way to do it. And now I teach this to everybody that I meet, but you have got to learn to time block and batch your work. So there's a business dashboard for your business page. Mm-hmm. There's literally a calendar where you can schedule posts and then what time they go out, where they go, and everything else. So instead of making one post every other day and then going, all right, what am I going to post today? Or, oh, I don't know what to write. Like, let yourself get into that zone, get into that flow of writing posts for Facebook, and make 5, 10 posts in a 1 hour, 2 hour time block, and then schedule them out for the next 2 or 3 weeks and just be done with it. And the same with estimates. Like, if you do estimates at 7:00 at night, do them all at 7. Because the first one's going to take longer because you got to get your mind in the mood. But then the second, third, and fourth get done really, really quick. And so I always batch and time block, because I can accomplish so much more efficiency by just focus on one task repeated than I can bouncing from each task individually.
Yeah. No, and I think you stay organized that way. I was always a notepad checker off person. I mean, every morning you write a list and you go through and accomplish your list. So hopefully.
Yeah. So I have a dual list, and I kind of write it out. I have one column that says on my business, and I have one column that says in my business. Because like checking emails, returning calls, that's all stuff you do in your business for daily management. But what are you doing to work on your business to get it to exactly where you want it to be for the future vision you have for it? You gotta dedicate time for that. Otherwise, you get caught in the minutia of running it day to day. Then you lift your head up a year later and you go, shit, I'm in the exact same place I was 12 months ago.
It's like reconciling your books. I mean, take 10 minutes a day and go in and reconcile, so you're not at the end of the year going back and trying to figure it out. So.
And with the technologies we have available today, if you're using QuickBooks, it's so easy to categorize your expenses and do everything else from the app on your phone while you're sitting in the drive-through waiting for your lunch. Like you have no excuse not to do it other than you just haven't made it a daily habit.
That's another thing that I've been using since day one is Wave, WAVE.
Yep.
I send out invoices. I send out estimates. All my customers are in there. Does all my bookkeeping, links to your bank account. I know a lot of guys use Joist and different ones like that. But that would be one of my biggest recommendations is start using something like that. Makes you look professional, keeps everything organized. My CPA has access to it at the end of the year, or he has access year round. He goes in there. So it's just one of those, I think the littler things that you can figure out, helps you in the long run.
Yeah. And if you look at the grand scheme of things, so if you're using QuickBooks is great for back end management of expenses, incomes, AP, AR, P&L balance sheets, but their estimates are awful.
They're not very pretty.
They're awful. So that's where jumping up to adding Jobber to a software that integrates with QuickBooks, but now you have a very professional estimate. You can actually do material. You can do scheduling. You can offer financing to your customers. And I see so many guys not add that extra step because they don't want to spend the extra, $12, $40, $80 a month for the software. And I'm like, how many jobs do you lose and how many more hours a week do you have to work because you're not willing to pay for the right tool for you? And what is your time worth? If you're telling people your time's worth $150, $185 an hour, then why in the world are you doing $5 an hour tasks when you're not in the actual machine?
And you're either handwriting an estimate to somebody, which takes way more time than typing it up and emailing it to them. They lose it. I mean, there's lots of better ways to utilize your time.
Yeah. I'll tell you the biggest thing we found for time saving, and I've spent more time teaching my team how to use it properly than anything, but now we're starting to see the efficiencies get squeaked out of it. But I use ChatGTP 7 times a day.
What is it?
ChatGTP?
What is it?
Jason, you don't know what ChatGTP is?
I don't.
So ChatGTP is artificial intelligence, and you can ask it anything and tell it to do anything. And the better the input you give it, the better output you get. So I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I created what they call a prompt, which is saying, hey, do this with this data, and I want it done this way. And then I provided the data, and then it gives me an output, and then I can continue talking to it and refining it to make it exactly what I want. So your entire introduction at the beginning of the show was massaged and used based off ChatGTP, and then I just tweaked a few words and rearranged a few sentences. And it took me 3 minutes to write that introduction instead of a half an hour trying to figure out what to say about you.
Interesting.
But just leveraging time and technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's so figuring out how much gravel you need for an area. You can do it 30 feet by 30 feet, times turn the inches into a decimal divided by 27 equals how many yards you need. Or you can just use a simple calculator for a concrete slab. I've checked it and double checked it and triple checked it. It is within 0.03% of doing it by hand. So I gave up on it. I used to always figure it out by hand. And then I said, well, I can plug this in the calculator. I can meet with the customer. I probably get shot for saying this, but I don't upcharge my materials.
You're going to get shot for saying that.
Probably. Sorry, guys. So I can go to a customer. I can look at the job, figure out, measure it real quick, figure out how much gravel they need, give them a cost on the gravel, give them a price, and walk away. And I go home. I put in an estimate. I email it out to them. There's a slight upcharge, but very minimal.
Hey, there's got to be a little something. You got a little slice for your time using that calculator.
Yeah. So I think it's the technology that comes into play that gives them an answer right then. There's no reason to wait a week. I mean,
yeah, I'm just wired different than a lot of people. The older I get, the more I realize that. But people get so comfortable doing something one way. Like, your dad did something the same way, and that's the way we're going to do it. And I've always had this personality type that's like, there has to be a better way to do this, or we have to be able to get more efficiencies or better results. And I'm never satisfied with I'm happy with what I get, but I'm never satisfied. I'm always looking for improvements.
I'll give you an example. So I got my grader before my buddy. I use that grader to spread material. Belly dump comes in, side
it's
dump.
So nice for that.
I just take it like a big claw, reach out, grab it back. The old way, you take your bucket, you go in, you get a bucket, you back up, you spin around, dump Sprinkle a little bit, go back. And it might, you can be a little more precise of how much you're putting down, where you're putting it down, but it takes so much longer. And my buddy makes fun of me all the time. He's like, you and that goofy grader. I said, yeah, but I can spread 20 yards in 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And to me, it's a better, more efficient way to do it than taking the bucket. And it's a lot less work on the machine and your tires. And so I think you have to adapt. You have to get better. I mean, at what you do, and you better be learning every day. So
we can take that do more grader to a driveway job. And I think we did one a couple of years ago, which was a great example of that. I think it was it was a long one. I want to say it was like 1,400 foot long driveway, and it was in pretty bad shape. So we knew the material was coming. We had it scheduled for 9 a.m. We got there at 8 o'clock, and between 8 and 9, actually between 8 and 8:20, I went up and down 3 times the driveway on both sides and had the base smoothed out, no more humps, potholes gone. Because, if you put gravel in a pothole, you still have a pothole. And got the whole road dialed in, and we sat around, drank coffee, waited for the material to come in. He came in, he's like, how do you want the material spread? And I was like, just do your best tailgating it up and down. And he was like getting real precise. I'm like, stop it, just do your best. And it was real wavy. It was, thick here and thin there. And I had a contractor with me, and he's like, man, you should have had him slow down, because that would have saved you an hour from getting that dialed in. I said, oh, you have never used this grader for pushing material up and down a roadway. If it's close, you're good. And because of the sides on that grader, you don't get any spillage into the yard. Like, it holds it in the box. So we just kind of float that grader where you want it. And I went up and down it 2 or 3 times. And when I say up or down it, I'm talking like 4 miles an hour, because you don't need to go super slow. And we had that thing leveled out with a little bit of a crown for water runoff in 30 minutes. And we were in and out of that job before 10 a.m. So we did a 1,400 foot driveway, prepped the base, spread the gravel, cleaned up the yard site, put the skid steer on the trailer in less than 2 hours. And I think I charged them $1,800 for that job.
I kind of feel bad sometimes how fast I get done something with the grader. But it's what they paid for. It's what they were expecting. And, and I grade it, compact it. So it's adapting and finding new stuff. And
Jason, my tidbit for you they are not paying for your time. They're paying for the result they desire.
It's a good way to look at it.
Right? Like they have a problem. You're providing a solution, giving them the outcome they want. At that point, they're paying for the outcome and the desire they want, not like otherwise you'd have a job if you're getting paid. Oh, I have to be here for 4 hours to make it look like I did work. Now you just got a job.
I think that's one thing I know I'm hard on myself is that you want to do the best job. You want that customer to come back. You are going to take the extra bit. You're not going to leave it sloppy. But I think at some point you're done. It's time to move on.
You are. But at the same point, like when we bought this house, like this brick wall behind me was natural yellowish brown color and we had it painted white. And I remember watching these two guys paint this fireplace and I felt like I turned around and then turned around again and it was done. And I'm like, God, that was fast. But it would have taken me 6-8 hours to paint it. So I was happy to give them the money they asked for it because my time was worth more than that. I think customers have that same approach. Just because you're there for an hour doesn't mean they would have had it done in an hour.
No, and I think that's why when newer, younger kids I see on Facebook starting out, like how much do I charge an hour? Just go in, do it. If it takes you the first 30 times, takes you 8 hours, and it takes you 8 hours. But once you get good at it and you start dialing in your machines and your equipment, you'll be in and out of there.
Yeah. How much is your cost per hour? How many hours do you think the job's going to take? And how much profit do you need to make? There's your number.
Yeah.
And then dial it in and tweak it from there. And if you're really young in the game, keep a notebook in your skid steer and actually keep time studies of how long different tasks take you so you can get better at your estimating.
Yeah, and there's little tricks too. Usually I'll go in and like you said, grade a driveway. And then you're sitting there waiting on the material to come in. I did a job, I think last year, where I was able to have the material delivered before. I was in and out of there in 3 hours. And it was a huge area in front of the shop, a driveway. I spread 80 yards and did the driveway and compacted it all. And I was in and out in 3 hours. So there's ways to figure out, if you can, to save time too. And you can't always do that. Sometimes you have to work where the gravel needs to go or the dirt needs to go or the topsoil needs to go. But
yeah, I always feel bad for the septic system guys because they're in this tiny little yard and then they've got to dig this huge hole. And that material's got to go somewhere, and it's usually got to go right to where the workspace is, where the machine needs to go, and they just have no room to work.
Move it over. I don't do, I thought about that the other day, buying a little mini X or something like that, but I just don't do a lot of that work. And that's where it's more beneficial for me just to rent one.
Yeah.
And I think that's specializing. I thought about getting in the septic systems, but it's a whole different animal.
If you get into septics, it has to be your primary service because, I actually make this reference quite regularly, but the septic system installation companies have all the same equipment a general excavator does of like average size. But if your company's listed septic systems, you don't get called for culvert repair or for land clearing because you're the septic system guy. So like if you're going to do septics, I think it needs to be your core primary service.
I guess it depends where you live too, but
guys will do it on the side, they might, but they're never going to get massive or be booked day in, day out with septic systems, being a general excavator that also does some septic.
I got into demolition, and that's been a nice little addition. My town has a more than fair share of 100-year-old garages falling down. So it's, but then where some people don't want to pay, they don't, hey, the garage is standing, I'm not going to tear it down. It's still good for a garden shed. But it's looking for those little things to hopefully expand your business and
absolutely
make some money on the side.
No,
snow
absolutely.
plowing. It's another thing people think about.
Yeah. I think snow plowing is a great way to put some money in the bank in the wintertime, but if you're focused on growing your excavation company, I recommend just being a subcontractor for a large landscape company that has the contract for their yard, just do the work till you make some money instead of having to deal with finding clients in July for
and you're on
October.
call. You're going out at 2 a.m. It's extremely hard on your equipment. It's freezing.
Yeah.
I don't think people don't pay for snow removal the same way as they look at gravel, dirt work, pad work, demolition, land clearing, things like that.
You're not getting any benefit out of it.
No,
like you're getting a site built because you're excited to get your new garage so you can house all your toys, right? You want me to pay how much so you can move the white stuff so I don't have to walk through it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No. So I've steered clear of that. That's one, owning your own business, you need to make, especially in Montana, you need to make enough during the summer, fall, spring, I guess, to make it through the winter because you don't collect unemployment.
Yeah, you got an 8-month work year.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 if Mother Nature's fickle.
In holiday seasons, people, you see it slow down. People are not thinking about, hey, I want to do this. And so,
yeah. And if you're in a seasonal area, that wintertime is we have slow months with online sales selling attachments too, right? Like January is typically awful. Like people spend their money in December for tax benefits. They're really not doing much work in January. So that's the month that we really dig deep and get granular on our SEO for our website, reoptimizing and rewording product descriptions, adding new images, writing all the copy for the ads for the spring, building out the emails, because I've got free time. If I wait till March and I'm like, I got to make those emails for March, and now the phone's ringing nonstop and the team member needs this, I don't get to it. But I had a whole month of January where it's pretty quiet. And for you guys too, I can't imagine you can't find 5 people in the middle of winter that you can get pre-lined up for services when the weather breaks in spring. Just a matter of making it a focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get people in the spring, that'll say, hey, I'm going to get a hold of you when the weather breaks. But then the weather can be so sporadic. I was supposed to do a job a couple of days ago. It was 0 degrees, frozen, snow. And I called him. I said, I don't. And that's the thing too. You want the work, but I want to do the best I can. So if the weather's not going to cooperate, I'm not going to just go do the work. Like I want to leave you with the best thing that I can leave you with, where, I hope everybody thinks that way, that they're just not. If the weather's not cooperating, you don't go out.
Yeah. The last thing you want is a customer telling everybody you know you did a subpar job.
It's the worst thing about social media, I think.
People like talking about the negative.
A restaurant customer service, they'll just blow it up. They'll get more likes and comments.
Back in the old days, the diner, the hair salon was that place, right? Like they'd always talk about the women and their potential divorces, but they never talked about them graduating from college. Like, oh yeah, that's boring. We want the juicy stuff, and the juicy stuff's always negative. So people just like to talk negative.
That's why I think if you can use social media to your advantage, it's a great way to get out there. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to advertise your business. And that's where keeping the private stuff off your feelings, emotions off your Facebook,
So I have a friend from college. Her name's Megan. And she's a realtor up in the suburbs of Chicago. And a couple years ago, and probably 6 or 7 years ago now, time just flies by. She was so sick and tired of having all these connections on social media with people she'd never met. She started this project where she was set out to meet in person 100 of her friends on Facebook that she had never met in person. I think she was slightly strategic about it, and she went because she was a realtor. So I think she picked who she wanted to meet. But I'm not kidding you. Her business tripled in the next 24 months, and I don't think it's a coincidence.
It's not a bad idea. Pick some people that are in your town that have connections with other people, and go have a coffee with them.
Go make it a real connection, not just digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. Man, Jason, I think we got some great advice. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you today.
It's so back in the day when I did recreation, I used to go to the University of Montana and talk to the rec and park kids about growing their futures and, just learning from people. So that's why I think your podcasts are really cool. And, everybody's trying the same thing, I guess. And
yeah, we're all hustling. We're all hustling. We all got a vision that we want to reach. And, I've got a lot of years and experience in owning some businesses, and I wouldn't feel right if I didn't reach my hand down to help somebody and pull them up their mountain with a piece of knowledge that I can share with them, or something that help them, guide them. I'm never going to push anybody down the hill.
No, that's what I think. Social media. I'm on a Ford truck group and skid steers groups and excavations, and some people are just pretty darn mean to other people.
Yeah.
That ask a simple question, and it's like, they're just trying the same as any of us, and so I think helping people helps our business.
It does. And I've just learned to ignore that noise, because what you find is if you actually met that person in real life and you were looking at him face to face from 3 feet away, he would not have the nuts to say it the way he typed it.
Yeah, it's the keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, man, if you guys are interested in learning more about Jason, you can find him on Facebook. He's pretty active on that platform. Connect with him, say hi, tell him thanks for being a guest. If you guys have any specific guests you want us to reach out and try to get on the show, please drop us a line. Let us know any questions or comments or topics you'd like us to cover. We'd love to hear from you so that we can continue to improve the content we provide to you guys. And if you're growing your business and you're hitting some roadblocks and you want to make that process go a little smoother and a little faster, head over to groundbreakinggrowth.com. You can learn about our coaching and consulting arm of Skid Steer Nation. Book a call. You'll speak directly with me. And if we're a good fit, we'll help you grow your business. Money back guaranteed. And if we're not, I'll let you know. So Jason, thanks again for coming on the podcast. And if there's anything Skid Steer Nation or myself can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Great time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.